This week we'll be talking about domain names, dodgy translations, Samsung, Scandinavian Airlines, and the UK's 5G rollout. Welcome to
This Week in CS with customer experience rockstar James Dodkins.
This week, a 26-year-old internet entrepreneur faces up to 20 years behind bars in America and a potential $250,000 fine after an attempt to steal a domain name went horribly wrong. Rossi Lorethario Adams II, his last name's more of a first name than his first name is, of Cedar Rapids, Iowa, tried to get hold of the internet address doitforstate.com by asking his cousin to break into the home of the man who owned it and demanded that he transfer it at gunpoint. Well, it's not even a good domain name. Why would it? It turns out that Adams had become obsessed with getting hold of the domain name in order to build up his business of video clips of drunk people doing stupid things. How's that even a business? Hopkins, his cousin, had a handwritten note with instructions on how to transfer the address, and this included the personal email of Adams. So it was very, very difficult for him to deny his involvement because of the email address. The robbery went wrong when the domain owner Ethan Deo thought that the gunman, 43-year-old Sherman Hopkins, was going to kill him, and he fought back. In the ensuing struggle, Deo was shot in the leg, but managed to get hold of the gun and shot Hopkins several times in the chest before calling the cops. A year later, Hopkins was sent to prison for 20 years. What, so he didn't die? Okay, fair play. Either way, this is completely crazy. Threatening somebody at gunpoint for a domain name. It's not like it's a Twitter handle. In other news this week, a supermarket in Wales has been left embarrassed after a translation on a sign promised more than they were planning for. The alcohol-free section at an Asda supermarket in how's a word that long only got one vowel in it? I don't know, someplace in Wales, accidentally advertised free alcohol. A spokesperson from the store in Wales said, I can't read that. Was it in Welsh? What have Welsh people got against vowels anyway? Whatever, it's probably the Welsh version of sorry, we're going to change the sign. Look, this isn't the first time there have been problems with Welsh translations. In 2008, Swansea Council memorably published an out-of-office email response on a road sign, reading, "I am not in the office at the moment, send any work to be translated." I guess the Welsh are just about as good at signs as they are at football. Moving on, this week Samsung have announced that they will be postponing the launch of their new folding phone.
I received the phone last Monday, and it has this plastic film on it that looks like the type of film that you would get on any other phone, even Samsung phones, iPhones, TVs and tablets that you remove before using. Typical, user experience. But about 48 hours after removing that plastic sheet, the phone was completely dead.
Many product reviewers said that their devices had malfunctioned. Problems with the phones, which were scheduled to be launched on Friday, emerged almost immediately, with some reviewers mistakenly peeling off part of the phone's display after wrongly assuming it was the protective cover. Others had issues with hinges or flickering screens. I guess the phones weren't as appealing as we first thought. Because of the screen, appealing. In other news, this week Scandinavian Airlines said that 673 flights would be cancelled on Friday, affecting 72,000 passengers. It said it was deeply regretful about the negative impact on customers. The pilot walkout comes after negotiations over pay and work schedules, which began a month ago, broke down. Most domestic, European and all long-haul flights have been cancelled. The strike doesn't affect flights operated by SAS partners, which make up about approximately 30% of all departures. Customers who have a flight booked are advised to check if their flight is affected.
With 70% of flights cancelled, SAS is warning passengers to check the status of their flight before travelling to the airport. Well, we're joined now on the phone by Freya Animats, Head of Media Relations at Scandinavian Airlines in Sweden. What's the status of these strikes? How long do you think they're going to take place for?
Good morning to you all. It's really deeply regretful the pilot strike will have such a negative impact on our customers. We are doing everything we can now to take care of our passengers at this moment, and all of the SAS employees are doing everything they can to help customers affected.
I thought Scandinavian companies were supposed to be good. Like, you wouldn't get this from an IKEA airline. You would have to assemble your own seat before you took off, though. And lastly, this week, the UK government has announced that it has allowed Hawaii. These guys are like the opposite to the Welsh. Like 80% of the word is vowels. That's what's happened. These guys have stolen all the vowels from Wales. Anyway, a Chinese phone company that no one can pronounce will be helping the UK government roll out 5G.
The battle between the U.S. and Huawei is still ongoing, and according to recent reports, one of Washington's closest allies has decided to allow the company's involvement in the creation of their 5G network, despite security warnings from the U.S. RT's Rachel Blevins is in the newsroom for us with more details to this. Rachel?
As the United States attempts to convince its allies to turn against Huawei, the UK has apparently decided to allow the company's 5G technology, even at the risk of retaliation from the US.
The UK spy agencies are pretty annoyed because they spend a lot of time trying to stop foreign governments from tapping phones and listening to private conversations and general spy stuff like that. Now the Prime Minister is just like, yeah, come on in. Do you want a drink? No? How about all of our secrets? The UK and China are kind of pretty similar anyway, so I don't really see what the problem is. We like tea, they like tea. London has lots of bicycles, Beijing has lots of bicycles. We have the famous British stiff upper lip. They have the famous Chinese stiff penalties for any kind of dissent against the government. We're basically the same.
This week in CX with customer experience rockstar James Dodkins.